Welcome back to another episode of Losers Ball Podcast. We hope you enjoyed your family day long weekend in Canada and just your, regular weekend wherever else you're listening from. And a happy belated Valentine's to all of those celebrating. Ilan, do you have anyone significant in your life?
Not right now. If you know anyone, hit me up. How about you, Ben?
No, we actually have not one, but two eligible co-hosts. So if you're looking for someone, just hit us up, send us a message in our DMs, and we'll probably get back to you.
Ben's got the face for podcasting, so if you want to look her, he may not be your guy.
I have the face for podcasting, you have the face for radio, and we're a nasty combo here.
Together we're the dynamic duo, almost like D Rose and Thibodeau, the dynamic duo in New York.
Yeah, you like the Knicks trade, eh?
Listen, sometimes you make trades to get better. Sometimes you make trades to get some friends. In this case, Tom Thibodeau just needed a friend back, and he's trying to relive his glory days from Chicago. He's got Taj Gibson there. He's now got Derrick Rose. All he needs is Carlos Boozer and Joakim Noah to be back, and maybe Jimmy Butler will demand a trade out of Miami.
It kind of seems like a movie that we're living in right now with the whole Knicks situation, trying to get the gang back together, one last dance, you could say.
All we need is for them to make a nice finals run, and then Derrick Rose to tear another ACL, and you got it a perfect storybook ending.
Why are you saying that? Don't wish bad upon that. Honestly, if we could go back in time, I would go back to see Derrick Rose in a Bulls uniform again. I wish we could see that again, just to get an MVP Rose back.
Yeah, MVP Rose was definitely a fun thing to watch. People try to compare Russell Westbrook to MVP Rose, but just the fact that Rose was so young and he had so much potential, and he was, people were praising him for being the youngest MVP for a reason. He had so much upside to bring, and then unfortunately his career got a little derailed by injuries. It was unfortunate, but he's still putting on a show. He had a 50-point game in Minnesota a few years back. He's always fun to watch, even in his older days and his less knee-able days these days. But it's unfortunate we couldn't see that original career trajectory pan out. It could have been that was always was going to happen for him because the way he played, he was so athletic, so reliant on being explosive, jumping, and that wear and tear on your knees, on your legs can get to you. I guess just look at Russell Westbrook this season. But definitely it's unfortunate. One player that people like to compare to him, to Russell Westbrook, is Ja Morant, and I really hope for his sake and for all the fans' sakes and just for everyone's sake that he gets a little bit of a better future. Maybe the medical staff in Memphis is a little better so that we can watch prime Ja Morant for many, many years, not just for a few years, not for shortened years. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, so it's actually very interesting that you mentioned Ja Morant because he's basically the centerpiece of this Memphis rebuild. They've moved on from the grit and grind era. Now they have a new era in Memphis. So for today, we're actually going to be talking about what other teams do you think, or what other teams are going to have to rebuild, just completely tear it down. They've tried year in, year out, and it's just not working, and they need a fresh start. And which teams are going to have to reload where they do have some nice pieces, but just not enough yet to contend. So Ilan and I, we've made our cases for 3 teams each, and we're going to see what these teams have to do to be successful or have success going forward in the future. Some of these takes I feel like people aren't going to like. I'm looking at Elan's list right now. Couple of very interesting teams to see, and Ilan's seen mine, and I'm sure he also has some strong opinions. But we're gonna discuss to see what these teams have to do to come away with the championship, or to create a blueprint to get a championship in the future. So Ilan, I'm going to ask you about the Atlanta Hawks. Do they have to rebuild or reload?
Yeah, for this, any team that I said reload, I not only just said, why they should reload, but also what a reload for them would look like, what kind of game plan moving forward, as you sort of mentioned with the blueprint. So I'll start this off with the Atlanta Hawks. I think that the Atlanta Hawks should reload. I think that they are already contending for playoffs this year. They showed in the offseason that they wanted to start competing for playoffs. They brought in Rondo, who may have not panned out. There's reports saying that that the front office of Atlanta was considered that Rondo signing unsuccessful, but it still showed where their intentions were. They brought in Bogdanovic, they brought in Gallinari. They clearly show that they want to compete for the playoffs. And I think that with Trae Young, Trae Young's an all-star. He's going to only continue getting better. I think they can build a team around him that can also start competing for maybe some Eastern Conference Finals, maybe even a push for the finals. As competitive as the league is, as the East is, it's still an open race. People can still surprise other teams. We saw Miami surprise the whole league last year on making it to the finals. So I think the Atlanta Hawks should reload, and this is what I envision for them. I think that sooner or later, we're going to start hearing reports that Karl-Anthony Towns wants out. Minnesota's been awful. They might lose their first-round pick next year to Golden State in that D'Angelo Russell trade. And I think that for a guy who's literally been in a losing situation his whole career, it doesn't seem like they're going to be starting to get any better anytime soon. So I want to see Karl-Anthony Towns get traded to the Hawks. I want the Hawks to make a run at him. And a trade I made that it seemed to work out financially, I think that it could entice Minnesota. I think that Atlanta would for sure be okay with this. Would be Karl-Anthony Towns for Clint Capella, DeAndre Hunter, their rookie Onyeka Okongwu, 2 first-round picks and 2 pick swaps. It would improve their already deadly three-point shooting. Their offense would basically be unstoppable from all over the court. And you'd basically be locking yourself into a core of Trae, Cat, Bogdanovic. They can match any offer that John Collins gets. They're going to have Kevin Huerter, they'll have Cam Reddish. Gallinari's on contract for another 2 more years. They'll have a bunch of also movable contracts. I think that their defense might look really bad, but they can look at Brooklyn as sort of a test sample on, can you win a championship? Can you make a run at the title with a bad defense? That's going to be the story of Brooklyn's season. So I think that Atlanta should go all in. They should really try to build a core around Trae Young. Even though he's so young, they already have a solid system around him. And I think that just go all out, try getting Karl-Anthony Towns, free Cat, save Cat, bring him out of Minnesota, bring him to Atlanta, make it happen. What are your thoughts?
It's interesting because when we were going over at the beginning of our, one of our first episodes, going over, the off season, seeing which teams are winners and losers. I thought that Atlanta was one of the big winners from the off season, which they did. They reloaded, picking up some veteran pieces and also signing Bogdan Bogdanovic. You got Danilo Gallinari, and then you also got Rajon Rondo in free agency. So it's interesting that obviously, they do have to make some more moves to remain competitive in the East, because right now the East is very top heavy. As we see, the top 4 teams in the East are really the only teams that have a shot at contending for a championship. But it's interesting to see the moves that you want to happen to make Atlanta to be one of those contenders. I like the Karl-Anthony Towns trade. I think that's honestly what they need. They need like a strong center, kind of move on from Clint Capella. It'll be interesting. It'd be interesting to see if that happens. Should they make the Karl-Anthony Towns trade, and basically everything what you said comes to fruition, do you think they're an instant contender against Milwaukee and Philly, let alone even Brooklyn too? Because they have those players locked up for a while.
Yeah, I've said it from the start of the season. I think that Philly is the favorite in the East, and I still believe that's true. I think that Embiid playing like the way he is, I think that they're really the team to beat, even though you have that 3-headed monster in Brooklyn, even though you have the 2-time reigning MVP, the reigning Defensive Player of the Year in Milwaukee with Giannis. I still think that this year the East is going to go through Philly. I don't think that necessarily they'll be ready to beat Philly already this season, but they already sped up the process from going from a tanking team, a team that's just trying to get into the lottery, to a team that is trying to get into the playoffs. They've done a good job so far, and I think that they can speed up the process. Developing Trae with Karl-Anthony Towns, getting them to mesh together, plus you have some other pieces around them. Maybe they won't contend necessarily this year, but they might try making a deep playoff push this year. But I think that within a year, 2 years from now, as Trae takes another step forward, as Karl-Anthony Towns continues to take a step forward, he's still pretty young. They can still, they still have a solid future, but I think they're also going to have a present with that as well. So maybe not necessarily this year. I think that it'll definitely speed up the process, and I think maybe within a year or two they can already start competing. Who knows what's going to happen with Milwaukee? Who knows if Drew Holiday will re-sign with them? He's definitely a piece that they're going to need to pick up. Brooklyn, who knows how that's going to work out, if they can work out with the defense. So we already know that that's a little shaky thing. The way to beat Brooklyn is literally just to try to defend them because they can't defend you. You just have to score more than they are because they're not stopping you. So a team like with shooters and offensive weapons like Trae Young, like Karl Anthony Towns, Brooklyn could have a hard time stopping them. They don't really have someone who can defend guards. They don't, DeAndre Jordan's good, but he can't really come out to the perimeter. So I think that they could give Brooklyn some problems. I think that, again, it's not going to be a 1-year process. It's a, 2-3 years down into the future plus some. But I think it's just the right direction. It's the right move for them. And Minnesota, it's just time to relocate, do something big. It's
whoa. It's rebuild or reload, not relocate. Ilan, come on.
That'll be for another episode. Rebuild or relocate. I like it. All right, Ben. Let's hear your first one. I want to throw a team out for you. The Trailblazers. What are your thoughts? Should they rebuild? Should they reload? Let's hear it.
Okay, honestly, I don't think a lot of people are going to like what I have to say here, but I honestly think that Portland should rebuild. Here's the issue, though. They have both CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard locked up for quite a while. I'm just looking at their contracts here right now, both signing extensions, and these are going to be contracts that are going to be very hard to move from. Right now, this year, Dame's contract expires. He signed a 4-year, $176 million extension. That's going to pay him $39 million in the first year, and then in the last year of the contract, $48 million. And by the time that's done, he's going to be 34. For CJ, on the other hand, he also signed an extension, paying him an average of $33 million per year. And the reason why I say to reload is just because I'll try to put my words carefully, but it's just a whole lot of mediocrity in Portland right now. I've been very critical about them over the past 3 years. I think they got absolutely exposed, in the 2018 playoffs when New Orleans swept in the first round when Portland was the 3 seed. And I just don't see, I don't see this team being a championship team going forward with the lineup that they currently have. You could kind of compare them to what the Raptors were like when you had Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan. You're a very good regular season team, but once you come into the playoffs, you really don't have a lot of expectations. Just looking at their past playoff, appearances, it really hasn't been that impressive. Last year, they got bounced in the first round. 2 years ago, they made it to the conference finals. They got the participation trophy from Golden State, getting swept. In the previous 2 years before then, got swept by the Pelicans and the Warriors. And it's more or less been the same lineup. It's both, it's CJ and it's been Dame. So unless they move on from one of them to, really attract another superstar, credit to Dame having an unreal season this year, MVP candidate. But unless, they make a big move to get another superstar and to really add more depth to that lineup, I honestly think that they should blow it up because I don't see them, being contenders in the West, being legit contenders, I should say, in the West. What are your thoughts on that?
Ben, it sounds like you're making the case for reload while saying rebuild. You just said how Dame and CJ are both playing well. Dame's an MVP caliber player. They're in their primes right now. They're in those early 30s, late 20s, that are literally the prime of their careers. And you also compare them to the Raptors. They're a team that's been just a successful franchise with a consistency, with a consistent system. They know exactly who they are, what they're doing. They're making the playoffs every year. They're a winning environment. And look what the Raptors did. They didn't realize that they were having a bunch of years with Lowry and DeRozan where they made the first and second round and call it a day. They decided, let's not rebuild, let's reload. Let's ship off DeRozan, get Kawhi. That could be the big move that Portland needs to make. Maybe they ship out CJ. It seems like every single year, every single month, he's in trade rumors for another superstar. Maybe that's the move they make, and that's what puts them over the top. They're a team that has been on the brink every single season, that's tried to chip away. They've, gave teams some problems. They've always shown that they've got the firepowers with their number one star, who's not just their number one star, who's one of the top stars in the league. I think that this is a prime candidate to reload. Exactly how you demonstrated with comparing them to the Raptors, that's their key to success right there. Whether it's trading CJ, whether it's trading Nurkic, whether it's trading any of those other role players that they have, Damian Lillard is a top 10 guy in the league. Those guys don't come around too often. You got to take advantage of that and really, really, make the most of what you're given. And let's also not forget that many years in the past. Last year they were riddled with injuries. This year CJ's got injured again. They seem to always have. I don't know what's in the water in Portland, but they're always getting injured there. Maybe that's the issue. Maybe they should reload and relocate. Maybe that'll help them. But I think that you really spelled out the case for them to reload without even realizing.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for the psychology lesson there, picking up picking up all those pieces. But still, how many years are you going to have the same result year in, year out? You're a great regular season team. You come to the playoffs and you get bounced in the first or second round. Is the point, is your goal of a franchise to win a championship or to make the playoffs? I don't see this lineup really excelling in the playoffs, being like a legit contender when you have the Lakers, you have the Clippers, and you have the Jazz playing well too. Like I said before, they have to make the DeMar DeRozan type of situation. But the issue is they have pretty big contracts. No team, it's going to be tough to convince a team to say, oh yeah, we'll trade you Damian Lillard. You're also going to have to pay him $48 million a year, in his deal. That's going to be tough to move. You know what I'm saying? So they're kind of stuck in the middle at the moment, I would say. That's why I've been that's why I wasn't so clear as saying reload or rebuild, because there's just a lot of questions. You also have to address your center situation. Yusuf, Mr. Glass Nurkic, he's not going to help you. he's not going to help you, make this team, turn you into a contender. He wanted, the starting position in Denver. They put him to the bench, obviously going forward with Nikola Jokic, the right decision, I'm going to add. And, he was very unhappy. He he requested a trade multiple times. Denver granted his wish. They sent him to Portland. And, here's your opportunity to start. And he's just getting injured all the time and not really being a solid piece to this Portland puzzle. So that's why I'm very hesitant on giving like a definite rebuild or reload for Portland.
All right, I hear that. I think that in general, any contract can be moved for the right situation when the right opportunity presents itself. I don't think anyone thought that Russell Westbrook or John Wall can get traded, and they're now on new teams, so there's always opportunities. More than ever, contracts are being moved. I think it's possible, but I definitely hear your concerns. For me personally, I think that they're a reload team, though.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. I still think, they need to get a bona fide third option, not a washed up Carmelo. I know you're a big Melo fan here. I know you're a big Melo fan, but come on, let's be real. Let's get into this decade. Next team that you had on your list was the Miami Heat. One of the teams that was a big winner a couple of years ago in the free agency, signing Jimmy Butler. And also, drafting very well, drafting Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero. Where do you see them? Rebuild or reload?
For me, it's hard to go against a team that just made the finals to saying for them to rebuild. I think it was pretty obvious that they should reload. Their record right now is pretty bleak. They've been, struggling throughout the beginning of the season, but they've also been riddled with injuries. COVID has affected them more than most other teams, and they haven't really had a full, healthy roster play consistently like many other teams have had. So I think that once they continue, as the season progresses and they get more healthy and COVID becomes less of an issue for them, they can start turning things around and building things up. And really, even though there's, down in the towards the bottom of the standings, there's still a few games out of playoffs. They can get back in there, especially with that play-in tournament. Anything's possible in the playoff race. So I think that as problematic as it may seem from the outside looking in, looking at their record, I think that they're actually a lot better set up than most people actually realize. And so the trade that I was thinking for them, they really need someone who can consistently score. Jimmy Butler is their star, and that was their big free agent signing, like you mentioned. But he has nights where he'll put up 15 points, and I'll have nights where he'll put up 30, 35 points. And, you never really know what you're getting with him. You know that he'll give it his all, but his all can look different at different times and in different games. And again, Bam Adebayo, he's great also, but he's not necessarily a consistent scorer yet. And that might develop and evolve as his career projects and continues, but he still isn't consistently putting up those solid scoring numbers that you want to see. So they need a third star or a third piece, a consistent scorer, and that's why I want them to trade for Zach LaVine. Give away Tyler Hero, America's favorite player, favorite young player.
That's going to be tough. Miami sees him as like the next coming of Christ. The Miami fans, they love him down there, so that might be tough to convince them.
Yeah, but Miami also likes all the new shiny objects, so I'm sure they'll be happy with Zach LaVine also. Give them, Tyler Hero, Precious Achua, the rookie, Myers Leonard for contractual purposes, and then Goran Dragic also just to make the numbers work out. And then you'll have a team of Zach LaVine, Jimmy Butler, Kelly Olynyk, Bam Adebayo. You've got Robinson coming off the bench. You got Kendrick Nunn in there. Andre Iguodala can come off the bench, play some defense. Avery Bradley, another solid defender. They have a solid team. They'll have consistent scoring with Zach LaVine. Oh, my bad. Dragic wouldn't have to be part of the trade, so he'd actually be part of that roster. So another, key player on that team. And I think that you'll have consistent scoring with Zach LaVine, but his defensive issues won't be such an issue because that team in general is a defensive team. You got Bam, you got Jimmy Butler, you got Andre Iguodala. Either Zach LaVine will learn defense or the rest of the team will pick up the slack. What are your thoughts on that kind of trade? Do you think that they should reload as well, or do you think that their season's already lost, or maybe the future, they've got some good young guys, just lean into that?
Yeah. No, I definitely don't think the season's lost. I mean, the East isn't the greatest conference in the world. You don't have to be such a great team to make the playoffs as, a couple of the teams on my list that you'll see. You really don't have to be that good. But for trading Zach LaVine, you're kind of assuming that they're still going to have the core, they're still going to have, Andre Iguodala, Jimmy Butler, Goran Dragic. They're kind of in the middle, of where they want to move forward. Because Jimmy Butler, boy, I think he's turning 34. He's up there in age, which is why, you're kind of like, do you want a young core? You're looking for like a veteran presence, and like you said before, it doesn't reloading. It doesn't happen over a year. You still have to give it some time. I'm pretty intrigued with it because I think Zach LaVine probably lines up better with the development of Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero and some the other young players for Miami. It's a bit like in the middle for me. I'm a bit undecided on rebuilding or reloading.
Yeah, I think what makes Miami so intriguing and interesting is that they got the veterans and the older guys. They've got probably the oldest guy in the league, and Udonis Haslem just there to share his wisdom. But I think that Jimmy Butler is actually, 31, and his contract ends when he's 34. So this is probably his last big contract. But they'll have some contributors and some stars in Jimmy Butler, Iguodala, and those older guys, Goran Dragic as well. And they also have those fresh legs, those young guys who can continue to, play a ton of minutes. Miami likes to, they have an extreme regiment there. They're all about keeping them that below like 5% body fat or 2%, whatever it is down there. It's basically like an army base in American Airlines Arena or whatever it's called nowadays. I think that it's a great combination. You want the young guys. You want a team that you can continue to develop and show a future with and sort of take the reins over as Jimmy Butler sort of, regresses and ages a little bit more. You'll have Zach LaVine and Bam to take over the reins and to take the torch from him and continue to contend in the title. Playoff experience, finals experience is extremely valuable. And when you have players who are gaining that experience at such a young age, it'll only help them get better. It'll teach them what a winning environment is like. I mean, just imagine Karl Anthony Towns in a situation where he's winning. It'll probably be tremendous for his career. So I think that although it seems that it's strange they have such young guys and such, promising young players and some also older guys, I think that's the perfect combination you need. We mentioned the Hawks before. That's what they tried doing. They tried bringing in some veterans to teach them how to play, how to be professionals, how to win. That's what you sort of need to sort of be these mentors and guide them. Because these players don't usually have so much experience, you need some guys who know what it's like to play in a playoff game to give it their all. So I think that's a perfect idea for Miami. Zach LaVine hasn't been in many winning situations, so to throw him into Miami as well, it could be good for him. I want to see that happen. Pat Riley, you're known for making big moves. Pick up the phone, bring Zach LaVine over. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see that. Put Zach in a winning situation. It's got to be rough going from Minnesota to rebuilding Chicago. It can't be too good for your development.
Yeah, not everyone can be a winner. It's only one team makes it out of the championship every year.
No right. Participation trophies here.
Exactly. All right, another team I want to throw at you. I saw you had this on your list. Indiana Pacers. They're currently towards the top of the East. They have some good young pieces. They got some solid rotation. What are your thoughts? Rebuild or reload?
This is another team that I'm a bit conflicted with too. Yeah, this is a team that's honestly kind of moving backwards in a way. At the beginning of the 2010s, we all know them as the in the Eastern Conference Finals going head to head against Miami, And ever since then, it's just been 5 straight consistent first round exits. Remember when they had the Roy Hibbert, Lance Stevenson, Paul George, being all like actual contenders. They could have, there could have been no Miami Heat championships. When LeBron took his talents to South Beach. But yeah, as we've seen like the past 5 years, got swept by the Heat, swept by the Celtics, took Cleveland to they took them to 7 games in a pretty controversial series. Got swept by Cleveland the year prior, and then they took the Raptors to 7 and they lost there. I think in an alternate universe, Indiana still has their core of Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Somewhere in some other dimension, they are an absolute dynasty in Indiana. However, hindsight's only 2020. As of now, I think they should reload, try to acquire. Obviously, it's going to be difficult in Indiana being a small market, but try to acquire some other pieces. If you could try to land another All-Star, that'd be great. Because I'm very interested to see how Domantas Sabonis and Karis LeVert, how they would play together. I think it's like a very intriguing combo to have. But I would maybe give it a year or two. If that doesn't work, I think you have to rebuild. That's the issue of being like a small market team. You have to get very lucky in the draft. And if you don't draft, an all-star superstar and, like multiple of them, then it's very tough to compete. It's not, you don't have the luxury of being, Miami or LA where you could easily attract, big name free agents. This is the reality that Indiana has to go through, and it is what it is. Once again, this is similar to Portland. They're a good regular season team. That, like we've mentioned multiple times, the East is, you don't have to be that great to make this the playoffs in the East, but they play very, very well in the regular season. But once you get to the playoffs, this is where they kind of go into a bit of a shell, and these past 5 playoff appearances getting bounced in the first round. Imagine if that happened to the Raptors. Which it more or less did. They had a couple of runs ago, always running into LeBron. But imagine if 5 straight years that with the DeRozan and Lowry lineups, they got bounced in the first round. What do you think Masai would have done? He would have done a move way sooner. They made the move, a couple of weeks ago, upgrading, in my opinion, from Victor Oladipo to Karis LeVert. LeVert, this is supposed to be like his breakout year. I think a lot of people are going to be interested to see what he could do. But if this doesn't work out, then I think you just have to start over and get lucky in the draft again. What do you think about that?
Let me throw a trade scenario out for you. What if they go for Bradley Beal? You're talking about how it would be exciting to see how Karis LeVert pans out in Indiana. Why not flip him right away to Washington? Try going after Bradley Beal, throw in Jeremy Lamb, and literally just give them all of their picks. Like, I'm talking a Drew Holiday, Anthony Davis, James Harden level-esque of just giving them the entire draft capital and just going in for Bradley Beal. You'll have Brogdon, you'll have Beal, Sabonis, Turner, TJ Warren. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that Washington would consider that? I think that it would instantly make Indiana contenders. Just an idea.
I don't know about contenders. I wouldn't say that just yet. I think they'd be a much better team. Instead of getting bounced in the first round, maybe they get bounced in the second round. But I wouldn't say contenders just yet. I mean, here, I'll throw this back to you. Let's say Beal doesn't want to stay in Indiana and he wants to play for like a real contender, like go to LA or somewhere else like that. You just gave up all of your picks, so you literally have, you're basically going to give up a bunch of high lottery picks, because if Beal leaves, your team's not going to be too well. You're not going to attract any free agents. You're just going to honestly have to get like undrafted players and just hope for the best for them. So that's why I think a trade with Washington is going to be a bit risky, because you're assuming that Beal wants to go from one struggling franchise to another struggling franchise. It's I don't see that trade happening for them.
But Beal is under contract for the next few years, right? He doesn't have that same sway or pull that other players have. You put him on that team, he's 30 to 35 points a night. You've got Malcolm Brogdon, who's a great point guard, still young, still getting better. Miles Turner is in contention for Defensive Player of the Year this year. Sabonis has taken another leap forward. I think he can be in the running for Most Improved Player this year. TJ Warren can get you some buckets. That right there, they all can play defense. They all, Bradley Beal's a great defender. Brogdon can defend as well. They all can pass the ball, can facilitate. Sabonis is one of the best passing big men in the league. Brogdon, again, like I mentioned, he's a great point guard. He can pass the ball. Bradley Beal, put him in there. They don't really have a key guy who their offense centers around. They sort of, it's just a collective, team success. You have someone who you can actually focus your team around, who can get you a guaranteed bucket, but everyone else can also score and can do all the other things that a successful team needs to do around that. He's on contract for another few years. If it doesn't work out, if he demands out, we know what the price is for a superstar in his prime. We've seen the trade with Anthony Davis, with James Harden, all these other players. We know that they can at least get some of that draft capital back. I think that it may be a little risky in case he wants out, in case he doesn't want to stay in a small market. But then again, he stayed in Washington and has never said he wants to leave for the first, 8-9 years of his career. So maybe he does like small market teams. Maybe he's okay with that. And that's a pretty solid core moving forward. They're all young. They're all going to, only get better. And put Bradley Beal on a team like that. Put a guy who can get you 30, 35 points a night, who's leading the league in scoring, who can defend, who just wants to win in a winning situation. And a team that has been stable, has been making the playoffs every year. I think that he'd be okay with. I think that the second he realizes he's not on the bottom of the standings, he'll just be happier already. Anything else is just bonus.
It's tough to say. I don't know if just getting Bradley Beal, if that's enough to really push them over the edge to being contenders for the East. It's honestly definitely a really, really intriguing trade option though. I like that, and we see that Indiana's not afraid to make a move. Kind of wiggling the way in the James Harden trade.
Give me the keys to a franchise. Let me be the GM, and I'll bring you a title within a few years, guaranteed. Indiana, if you're listening, I'll come in.
If I see any GM openings on LinkedIn, I'll forward you the post and you can apply to that. But here's a good GM situation for you. Dallas Mavericks, the situation there as of now, it's not looking too good. Dallas is underperforming significantly this year. What do they have to do? They already have their franchise guy. They have Luka, but do they have to get more? Do they need more players around him, more, or do they just have to get lucky in the draft and try to find another player of his caliber in the draft?
Yeah, when I was thinking about Dallas, initially I wanted to say rebuild, right? Luka, although Luka and Trey are, the same age, that same draft class, they'll always be tied together. And I said that the Hawks should reload and really go for it, and that Trey Young could, be a main piece on a contender within the next year, 2 years. I think that Luka can do that as well, but I don't think that his team is there just yet. I don't think his team is good enough, and I think that Kristaps doesn't look like he was in New York. His clearly is not 100% healthy. And maybe he'll never get back to what everyone was expecting him to be that unicorn that I think that a bunch of other players has taken the title of the league unicorn since then, whether it's Giannis, Jokic, or anyone else. But they have a bunch of guys who are either on expiring contracts, who are older, whether it's James Johnson, who's 33 on an expiring contract, Tim Hardaway Jr., who's 28 on an expiring contract, Maxi Kleber is 29, Boban is 32, Dwight Powell is 29. So a bunch of their core is older. And then you have Luka, who's 21, and Porzingis, who's 25. So therefore, I really initially wanted to say just rebuild, and the team just isn't there. They're not going to win. They haven't been winning games this season, and maybe it's just better to try to develop on a slower pace. And Luka's locked in for the next however many years. He'll be there for the long run. There's no need to try to expedite the process, and no need to try to make moves out of fear rather than actually a logical team building kind of mentality. But then I realized that they don't have their pick this year. So there's no point in trying to just throw it all away and cash in and try to rebuild, because they traded their pick to New York for Porzingis.
Oh yeah, New York's winning for once.
I don't know if New York necessarily won the trade or not, but they now have no incentive to tank and to just blow it up and just do a rapid fire sale and just give away all their all their veterans and all the good guys. So I don't necessarily want to say to reload and try to give up their whole farm for another star, because I don't think that they're there just yet to start competing for a title, even though Luka's playing like an MVP level, but he also only really plays on one side of the ball. I don't know if it's, if we can start hating on Luka just yet. I know that everyone loves him right now, but sooner or later we have to start realizing that he is an MVP player. He's one of the top 5 players in the league, but he's also a subpar defensive player. And maybe he can't carry the team like we thought we were seeing in the bubble. In the bubble, he was fantastic, and I think that a few months ago I would have said for sure reloaded, try going for another star. But I think that this is a little bit of a reality check. I think that we now have a little bit of a better idea of who Porzingis is, and I think that I don't want to say rebuild because they don't have another draft pick this year. But I think they sort of just stay the course, try to go for that play-in tournament spot, try to just make a little bit of noise here or there, get Luka some experience, get Porzingis some experience, have them get some reps in together because Porzingis has been sidelined for a good chunk of his Dallas stint. But I don't necessarily want to say rebuild because they shouldn't rebuild because they don't have their draft pick, but sort of just stay the course. Don't try to just trade the future for a win-now move when it won't really pan out. So I'm going to cheat on this one. I'm going to say neither reload or rebuild, just sort of stay the course.
I like it. You keep the fans guessing. I love it. I mean, right now, they're only a game, well, at the time of recording, they're only a game out of the 8th seed. I think for them, as long as they stay healthy, I think they'll probably make the Western play-in tournament. But yeah, when you just look at the lineup, there's no really second guy behind Luka. Kristaps is what he was like back in 2015, 2016, and past those two players, there's really not much options on that team. I guess the bubble might have exaggerated some teams' talent, but Mark Cuban has to try to really attract some free agents in this in the off season.
Yeah, absolutely. This episode, it really might age poorly, and we might end up looking like fools for doubting Luka, for doubting Dallas. And I'm prepared to take that, to take that slack and look like a fool. But I think that based on what I'm seeing right now, based off their current roster, the contracts that they have, in place, and what's expiring, and what's not, I think that just stay the course. All right, the last team I want to throw at you. The Orlando Magic. This is a team that has been making the playoffs, the 8th seed, the 7th seed, seems to get, a win in that first game in the past 2 years, and then gets, a gentleman's sweep, as we like to call it. And what are your thoughts? They've got some young pieces. They've got some other, older guys. Should they rebuild? Should they reload? Should they try going for, either a deeper playoff run, a title contender if they even can? What are your thoughts?
It's really unfortunate that the NBA playoffs aren't single game elimination because I think this year Orlando probably would have been three-peating. Going to the playoffs, knocking off the Raptors in game 1 in 2019 and the Bucks last year in the bubble. But, this team's been rebuilding ever since Dwight left. And, the Dwight situation, that was one thing, but he's honestly left Orlando a Dwight-mare. There's just so much you can say about Orlando. Their drafting sucks, more or less sucks. The development of players sucks. There's really no clear path for them to go forward. They're not going to attract any big name free agents to Orlando. They do have nice pieces though. I'll give them that. They have really nice pieces, but unfortunately, they're all injured. That's the downside. Markel Fultz getting injured. Cole Anthony is injured right now. Jonathan Isaac's also injured. Those three guys, are in their early 20s, so those are the people who you're really going to try to build around. But at the same time, you also have guys that you've drafted that just really aren't, you're not getting great return for them. I think Aaron Gordon, is overhyped, overrated. He's a free agent after next year. I think it's time to move on from him. I don't see him, being part of their future. It's just tough to say. I think one move that Orlando should pursue is to trade Nikola Vucevic. I think he's under contract for I believe 3 more years. A team looking for a center, I think they would give up some picks and a couple maybe young prospects that they have, and I think that's really what Orlando needs in return. What do you think of possibly Orlando shipping off Vucevic?
Yeah, I think that it should have been done already. They should have already trade him to a contender. They have to have a bit of a reality check and realize that they're not contending, and that to have a 30-year-old guy who's making the amount of money that he is making, especially when you've got younger guys who can, who he's sort of taking away some playing time from them, definitely doesn't help. One team that I actually want to trade for Vucevic that I didn't mention before is the Trailblazers. I think that, ship off whether it's Nurkic, Anthony Simons, Naz Little, whoever other young guys they got, Zach Collins, bunch of draft picks also. A team with, Dame, CJ, and then Vucevic as their center, that can solve a bunch of their issues with the front court. They've had issues by not having a consistent center, a consistent guy in that front court. Vucevic would be a great guy there. I think that Portland it would make sense for Portland. Orlando may be able to get some, young guys or some draft picks in return. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I like that trade. I think that's a win. Portland definitely gets a win there, and also Nikola Vucevic gets a win there. Just being 30 years old, wasting his career, absolutely wasting his career in Orlando. Every year he's consistently put up better numbers. Becoming an All-Star in 2019. I'm actually going to backtrack on my statement. Orlando actually has some pretty good draft picks in the past. However, the issue is they made stupid trades and they can't develop a player. We all remember Orlando trading for Serge Ibaka, giving up Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis. Just another head scratcher for Orlando, and also drafting Mario Hezonja, 5th overall in 2015, a relatively weak class, but it was just a guy named Devin Booker who got selected 13th overall. So the situation could have been way different in Orlando should they have done their research. But as of now, you just kind of have to rebuild. Mainly through the draft. You have, as I mentioned before, you do have some nice young players too. It would be nice to see if they could develop Mo Bamba, but at the moment right now, you can't really develop him when you're paying Vucevic, $30 million a year on that lineup. And I think they have a good coach in Steve Clifford. Prior to Orlando, he was coaching in Charlotte. He had a couple of nice seasons there. So I think they're very close to being a pretty good team in the East. But like I said before, just the front office has to get their shit together. They no more super trades and better drafting. That's the only way that Orlando could really get back to what they used to be, pre 2012, back when they had Dwight, and way back in the 90s when they had Shaq.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on Mo Bamba? Do you think that he can turn his career around, he can make a name for himself and really carve out a role in the NBA, or do you think he's going to be out of the league within the next few years?
I mean, for that, it really depends on how Orlando decides to, I think, pursue Vucevic. Because how could you develop a player, Mo Bamba, who plays at the center position? How are you going to develop him when you're paying someone else $30 million? I think for him to be able to develop, you have to give him playing time, which means you have to ship out Vucevic. I think come this trade deadline, if they trade Vucevic, I think then you'll see if Mo Bamba is like a legit player, if he's legit in the NBA, or if he was just overhyped in college and he's going to be playing somewhere in Europe, in the next few years. It's tough, but I think there's still a lot of potential with them too. But being a 7-foot center with, what was he? He had like a 7'4" wingspan, something like that.
Something nuts.
Yeah, insane wingspan, a lot of athleticism. But he could honestly be part of this Orlando rebuild if given the chance.
One of my takes that never panned out well was I thought that Mo Bamba was going to be Rookie of the Year and that he was going to be a clear centerpiece. And this is the first time I'm publicly saying that, and I'll own it. It didn't pan out well. I thought he was going to be a defensive cog. I thought he was going to shut down anyone trying to come into the paint with his wingspan, with his height, with his athleticism. He seemed like he can put on a highlight reel, and that he'd be all over Twitter, and that fans would be into him, and they'd be all over him, and that. He had that song about him when he was drafted.
Literally called Mo Bamba.
Literally called Mo Bamba. I thought the hype was there. I thought that he could do enough on the defensive end and get those easy buckets in the paint to put up a nice resume in that rookie season. And that very clearly, very early on, was not going to be the case with him. And it was a bad take. It did not age well. But I'm here to own it. I make some good calls and some bad calls. That just was one of the bad calls.
I think Orlando has to sign Shaq West, and then you'll have Shaq West and Mo Bamba, being the modern day Kobe and Shaq. So.
Also, you said that Orlando's going to have issues getting free agents, but I hear that the chicken wings in Orlando is actually pretty good. Just ask Lou Will. So maybe some guys will come.
Okay, they could sign a washed up Lou Will. That's not going to help them, contend in the East.
Yeah, very fair, very fair. They've got some big decisions they got to make. They got to look themselves in the mirror and realize who they are and what they can do moving forward. I agree with you. They got to just rebuild already. Stop trying to make trades for Serge Ibaka-like players. Just accept that you're not a good team. These Alfred Gaminu signings have to stop. Just, trade everyone you've got. Just build a team after Markelle Fultz, Jonathan Isaac, Cole Anthony, maybe Mo Bamba. He is 22 years old, so maybe he's got some, potential in him still. I agree with you. All right, Ben, I think that's all the time we got for today. It was nice to hear your thoughts on who should rebuild, who should reload. Maybe we'll do this again in a few weeks, maybe next season. So if you're listening on Spotify, on any other streaming service that you're using, please make sure to let us know if you like this, if you like the Rebuild or Reload segment. If you've got any hot takes, any questions, anything that you want us to know, please reach out to us on our social media pages on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, at LosersBallPod. Send us those hot takes. We want to see them. We've got daily polls, daily predictions on Instagram. We've always got some fire content on Twitter. So make sure to drop us a follow. Tell your friends, tell your family all about us.
Tell your coworkers. Whoever. Tell your professors. It doesn't matter. Just tell people. We want to run a contest at 100 followers on Instagram. Whoever tell your network. Follow us on Instagram. And once we get 100, we're going to be running a contest. And, we think you guys will like it.
On behalf of the Losers Ball team, myself and Ben, happy buckets, have a good week, and we'll be back next Tuesday.
See you guys.